Hi, everyone. I'm Ming Wu. I'm the Managing Director of Fosun Health Fund. Welcome to attend the China Juggernaut session to learn about the current status and the new development of gene and cell therapy industry in China. The Chinese gene and therapy ecosystem has increasingly rich local innovation with growing development and investment partnerships. Driven by the strong policy support, China has already become a hotspot for gene and cell development and ranking second in the world by the number of clinical trials and related patents granted by the Chinese government. How China now is leveraging the local innovation and policy to shape the gene and cell ecosystem here may be of interest to the audience of the forum. So this panel, consisting of the leaders from the China academia, industry, investor communities, will consider strategic questions on the growth of the gene and cell therapy industry in China, the areas of the greatest strengths, evolving regulatory framework, early success, and products expected to reach China and also the world market. So let's welcome our panelists today, Dr. Alvin Luk. Alvin is the CEO of Neurox Therapeutics. And he has about 28 years of leadership experience in different companies in China and US. He participated in the development of Luxturna, which is the first gene therapy product approved by FDA in Spark Therapeutics, where he leads the clinical research and operations there. And our second panelist, Dr. Ping Wang. Ping is now the CSO of Jiangsu Simcere Pharmaceutical Company, and he is leading the cell and gene therapy segment of Simcere and also the company's Boston Innovation Center. He's also a co-founder of Apia Bio, working on the CAR NKT cell therapies, which just closed its 22 million A round. And our third panelist, Dr. Richard Wang, is the CTO of Fosun Pharma. So before this role, Richard was the CEO of Fosun Kite, a joint venture of Fosun Pharma and Kite Pharmaceutical, now a Gilead company. Fosun Kite is dedicated to the advancement of innovative cell therapy and its industrialization in China. And the company is actually expecting the first approval of the cell therapy product in China. Our next panelist is Professor Tian Xu. Tian is now Vice President of Westlake University. And before this, he was a tenured professor and Associate Dean of the Department of Genetics and Neurobiology and advisor to President at Yale University. Besides his achievement in academia, Tian is actually also an entrepreneur who founded several innovative drug companies as well as advisors to several biotechs. Last but not least, Dr. Stephen Yan, Shunfei Yan, and he is working on InnoStar Capital, and he actually invested in Neurox, a leading AAV-based gene therapy company focused on ophthalmology diseases, where Alvin is now the CEO of the company. So let's welcome our panelists. So to kick off the panel, I think one of the most interesting questions audience maybe would like to learn are, what are the areas of the greatest strengths in the gene and cell technology therapies in China? And what are the driving forces of the industry here? So could Alvin and Tian, maybe you could address the question relates to the gene therapy, and Ping and Richard, so you could address the question as it relates to the cell therapy. Thank you. Alvin, please.
Yeah, I think recent years have been an explosive acceleration in the number of gene therapy clinical trials in China and offering the hope of a revolutionary healthcare. And however, most of the focus in the gene therapy development have been on monogenic rare disease. And however, this type of rare disease tends to have a clear genomic target, as well as a high unmet medical need in a small patient population. If you look at in China, Of course, China has such a large treatment-naive population, also a large and growing network of hospitals qualified to conduct the high standard clinical trials now, with skilled clinical investigators, also rapid patient enrollment, which quoted about you could save about a 30% on the enrollment time. With the strong support from government, particularly for international partnership. So all these recent changes also in the China regulatory reform in 2015, and what happened that China has restructured the entire regulatory system with increasing the number of the drug reviewers, the conditional approval policy, new drug regulations, registration from outside of China, as well as trial data. We are actually right now China accepting outside of China. And so all of this have put into a really a fast-track approval process in China. And that's part of the strength that are driving the whole blooming of the cell and gene therapy in China.
Okay, so Tian, please.
Yeah, this is Tian, and hi everyone. So I think, the effort of gene therapy in China is very similar to what happens in the US and around the world. And, I have been served on the ICH Gene Therapy S12 committee, and I also chair the Chinese FDA Gene Therapy and Expert Committee, and we develop a document and for preclinical regulation and for gene therapy in China. And so I can tell you that actually the efforts and also the regulation are very similar. And in terms of what is different, and I would say that actually in two areas, and probably China and offer difference. And it's first, and I think given its population, and it is easier to recruit and patients that are for orphan diseases. And for example, we run a clinical trial and on the EBA and diseases, that's very rare diseases than the skin diseases. And we actually have patients very active participate. And I think these orphan disease clinical trials will be helpful to test principles as well as prove and approaches that will be benefit and worldwide. And the second, I think actually China is very active and testing, developing new technologies. For example, my group associated with developing the initial piggyback transposon and for gene therapy, and now have been used not only in China, but also in the United States and in other places. And I think in that regard, and I think Chinese gene therapy and populations can contribute to the world effort. Thanks.
I see. How about in the cell therapy areas? What are the strengths and the driving force for cell therapies in China? So, Ping, would you please comment on that?
Yeah, I think the driving force, I can say that that's three areas, right? One is, as I mentioned previously, the regulatory environment, that there's a clear path now in China for cell therapy as regulated as like a general drug. I think that really is one of the, I think, reason that driving the interest in the industry. Secondly, in China, I think we have so-called investigative clinical studies, which really give the clinic testing of some of the proof of concept testing in China is much more quicker than other places, like the US. And certainly, I think we really have we believe that gene therapy in China is not far behind of Western countries, not like other drug discovery, where we usually kind of start very late. But in this case, we believe that in China, there's very similarly, we have similar starting points. And that's another reason I think there's so much interest, both in the investing community as well as in the a lot of biotech and industries that are so much focused on the gene therapy. Yeah.
Okay. All right. And Richard, so do you have any other thoughts on this questions from the cell therapy area?
Yes, I would agree with Ping that first of all, the cell therapy we just have scratched the surface. So I think the recent technology and scientific development has really led to a lot of possibilities. We are just in the forefront of this wave. And that is what I think the main driving force in China, that everybody think that they can do it. They can be as creative to capitalize this new development. Obviously, the clinical potential is so great, so that I think everybody wants to really commit it to this new technology and hoping to develop innovative therapies. But also importantly is the fact that there are also a lot of investment going to really support such a ecosystem. I think almost every week we see new companies getting funded by VCs and other investment institutions, which I think, and I also believe, which will really help the development of this industry in China. And we're looking forward to some innovative development of the product coming out of China.
Yeah, thank you, Richard. Actually, this leads to my second question. As you mentioned about, investors are looking into new developments in the gene and cell in China. So what are the next generation gene and cell therapies that are paying attention, maybe from an investor perspective? So, Stephen, so you are looking for the new opportunities to invest in gene and cell area. So could you please maybe tell our audience a little bit about this, about your view about the next generation of the gene and cell therapies, the hot areas that you are looking at? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for the question. Hello, everyone. Like for gene therapy, from my point of view, I would say it's depending on the indications. For severe fatal diseases, I would say the efficacy goes first. Like for diseases with available treatment methods, for example, like the hemophilia or other chronic disease, I would say we would like to focus on the safety issue first. For example, the AAV with safer safety profile, with better safety profile, like particularly after the safety issues that has been observed in Zolgensma, Audentes, and adenovirus trials. Like for cell therapy, like I would say for autologous cell therapy, we are looking for candidates with superior efficacy so as to compensate the cost, right? Like for cell therapy with moderate efficacy, then the cost efficiency would be a major issue, which might be partially solved by allogeneic cell therapy. However, this kind of allogeneic therapy may still face the competition from ADC and T-cell engagers. So generally, we suppose that the superior efficacy seems to be a must for cell therapy.
Okay, all right. And as several of you actually mentioned about the regulatory reform and regulatory environment is actually one of the key driving force for the growth of gene and cell therapy industry in China. So as we know that gene and cell therapy are highly regulated, right? With genetic testing, clinical trials, manufacturing has to be done in China. So my next question is like, what is the government role in this industry, and what are the regulatory perspectives from China FDA for the gene and cell therapeutics? So, Alvin, as you mentioned about this regulatory reform, would you please address this question a little bit? Thank you.
Yeah, I think let's start with the higher level. The whole China regulatory reform in 2015 really changed the whole entire clinical trial, not just only cell and gene therapy. And as you probably remember, used to be a lag time, even for approval time. You're talking about, we used to submit something for an IND approval, it would take about a year. And now you're talking about 60 working days. And then, of course, China also joined the ICH in 2017. That really brought up everything in a much more higher standard. And when you're talking about this whole regulatory reform, we're really talking about adding more reviewers, really hoping that the less delay. And the next thing that the regulatory are looking for right now, particularly for gene therapy, is really writing and drafting the guidelines. I remember reviewing the preclinical section of the China CDE guideline and asking for feedback. And I know they're working for the next one, which is the clinical trial guideline for particular for gene therapy. And I heard the next step they are thinking also is doing the iPSC, which has not been even done that in US yet. So I think they are really want to really encourage people and also trying to be up more driving up front for gene therapy and innovation.
Okay, and so for gene therapies, so what do you think about the hotspots and also the regulations maybe in the gene therapy areas for the future product development? So Tian, as you're working on several of the gene therapy related companies here, so would you please maybe comment a little bit like what are the new frontiers for these gene therapies, the hotspots, and also the regulatory concerns on it? Thank you, Tian.
Yeah, I think, of course, the number one area is the vectors and the methods. And as we are aware that actually, even last year and several patients that died off from ARV treatment. And so really everybody tried to develop method to either be more safe or, even develop ways for patients that are previously infected by AAV and still, can be treated by AAV approach, or actually developing non-viral based methods. And I think, transposons and et cetera. And also I think for gene editing, CRISPR, and I think still background mutations is an issue. And I don't think we are out of the woods yet. And so still, I think in this area, and I think, people are still try very hard and to see and how we can actually advance the basic gene therapy method. I think, gene therapy is a huge potential. And the issue is still and safety and means of delivering genes. And I think on the other hand, I think other areas, for example, NK, cells and genetic modified NK cells and offers potential, new opportunities and others like that. I think it's really a fantastic and opportunities, and it's really a lot of exciting works going. And I think, yeah, go ahead.
No, thank you. Yeah, you go ahead. Thank you.
No, I'm just saying that I think the regulatory concern, I think what I see, in China, I've been, work at Yale Medical School for more than 20 years, and in the US, and also HS1 investigator. And so I think it's, I've been in China for 3 years now. I think the regulatory concern and the safety ethical issue concern are very, very similar. And what probably will be slightly different is that I think the regulatory agents and for considering the price and whether the population can afford, and that potentially will be different. And although I don't know yet because we still don't have enough cases and that actually in front of us to compare. But I can see the the Chinese regulatory agencies are sort of particularly sensitive about the price.
Yeah, thank you, Tian. Actually, when you mentioned about price, so which is a very important aspect for the gene and cell therapies commercialization in China. So what would be the reimbursement policy of these therapies is still unknown. So we're interested to understand a little bit from industry perspective on what is the current status of these policies and what is the vision for the future. So maybe Richard, so you worked at Fosun Kite, right? And with this product is waiting for approval, maybe it could be tomorrow, very soon, right? Can you also talk about the your view on this aspect and also challenges and the issues around the cell therapy pricing in China? Thank you.
Well, as you said, we're still waiting for the Chinese NMPA to approve the first CAR-T product in China, which is the Yescarta. That has already been approved in more than 30 countries worldwide. So again, I think like what Tian said, the Chinese regulators or regulation policies are going towards harmonizing it with the global regulated standards. So as a matter of fact, I'm just attending a meeting today with the DIA annual meeting in China, but also we have talked the whole day about the ICH. So this is the very positive thing about moving towards international standards. But at the same time, we have to recognize that the Chinese regulation or the system is a bit different from other countries, even though the sponsors, of a drug approval or application is from the, all the responsibilities are on the sponsor, but government also takes a big, responsibility there as well, so that they always worry about if something got approved by them, had some, things happen that may be blamed. So that is something I think we can understand the regulation, their concern, and the responsibility. Maybe it's different, but also it speaks for these new modality, new technologies. We need to continue to strive for a more safer and more efficacious product. So if you say what would be us looking forward in the next wave of the cell therapy products, I think autologous CAR-T or autologous cell therapy may have its limitation. So I think allogeneic product may have a lot of room to be both commercially successful, but also be well characterized before it's really on the market, because the individual variation can be a big issue with autologous product. Mm-hmm. You also mentioned about the commercial strategy. Again, I think autologous product, because of manufacturing and all the others, the cost is very high. So it can be an issue with access, patient access. And we are working on all different things, trying to make sure that when we can cover all the costs, but also we can get as many patients affordable to get on the treatment as possible. So this is challenging, but I think there will be a middle point somewhere we can do it. But again, recognize that's the very early technology and a very early product. We have to work very hard to make more those innovative products more affordable to patients. So that's probably next biggest challenge we face.
Yeah, thank you, Richard. And Ping, do you have any add-on comments to what Richard said? What are the key considerations influence the regulatory approval of the maybe cell therapy products? And maybe you can address how do you compare those to what in the US? Thank you.
I think the regulatory environment in China for cell therapy are very similarly to, I think to the US. So in terms of, but I think as you mentioned that in China, maybe additional consideration for the regulatory is about the affordability and the price, right? That may actually slightly different in considering US, because US, I guess, regulatory wouldn't worry that much about the price. So I think that might be I can see the difference. Yeah. Other than that, I don't think in China I think they do emphasize significantly on the CMC aspect of cell therapy. I wouldn't say US wouldn't emphasize, but I think in China I feel like CMC is even more being they pay a lot of attention to that as well. So yeah.
Okay, all right. So we're running out of time right now. So maybe Shunfei, 1 minute. So you could maybe summarize on your view about US companies' benefits from the rise of China GCT. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I'll be quick. There are a number of ways that the US companies may get benefit from the rise of Chinese GCT. First of all, I think the rise of Chinese CRO and CDMO in GCT area may help to lower the barrier and reduce the cost in GCT R&D. Secondly, the awareness of the emergence of GCT may prompt the government and the industry to deal with the payment problem. So if this problem is solved, that would dramatically expand the Chinese GCT market. And thirdly, like the rise of the Chinese GCT may bring more options and choices, not only for the patients, but also for the MNC in terms of licensing opportunities. Like, for example, the deal between the BCMA CAR-T between Legend Bio and Johnson & Johnson is a very good example.
Okay, thank you. And thank you all for the panel. Thanks.
Thank you.